"Daddy, can we help her?" The words sliced through the restaurant's quiet hum. Derek's 8-year-old daughter stared at the corner table, where 2 elegant women sat trapped. One young, one older. 5 men circled them like wolves closing in on prey. The younger woman's hand shook as the leader's fingers locked around her wrist. His voice was silk, wrapped around steel. "Wrong decision, Miss Hamilton. Very, very wrong." The older woman lunged forward, got shoved back hard. Her chair scraped against marble. Around them, crystal glasses hung suspended. Conversations died mid-sentence. Other diners looked away, forks frozen, eyes averted, complicity in their silence. Derek felt it rising. That old familiar burn. The instinct he'd buried 3 years ago when he walked away from the Navy SEALs. When he chose his daughter over the darkness that kept calling him back. Chloe's small hand found his, warm, trusting. "Daddy, please." The men moved closer. Their circle tightened, and Derek understood with brutal clarity. Walking away now would cost him something no war ever could: his daughter's faith in him. Derek's jaw tightened as he watched the scene unfold 30 feet away. The restaurant, Bellamy's, one of those places where entrees cost more than his weekly grocery bill, hummed with the kind of quiet wealth that made violence seem impossible. Crystal chandeliers cast warm amber light across white tablecloths. A pianist played something classical in the corner, notes dancing between the murmur of sophisticated conversation. Derek had brought Chloe here for her birthday, stretching his budget thin because she'd wanted to feel fancy. To wear the dress her grandmother had sent before she passed. Now that dress, pale blue with white flowers, seemed too innocent for what was happening across the room. The younger woman at the cornered table looked to be in her early 30s, dark hair swept up in a way that spoke of boardrooms and power lunches. But power meant nothing when 5 men surrounded you like a noose tightening. The older woman beside her, 60 maybe, with silver hair and the kind of elegant posture that came from decades of holding your head high, tried again to intervene. This time, the man closest to her grabbed her shoulder. Not gently. Derek saw the wince, the way she bit back whatever sound wanted to escape. Around them, other diners had become statues. A waiter stood frozen near the kitchen door, tray balanced, but going nowhere. The manager behind the host stand reached for a phone, then pulled his hand back, uncertain. "Daddy." Chloe's voice was smaller now, scared. "That lady looks like Grandma Patricia." Derek's chest constricted. His daughter was right. The older woman had the same gentle features, the same way of holding herself that his late mother-in-law had possessed. Patricia had died 2 years ago, 6 months after his wife Sarah's car accident. Cancer, quick and merciless. Chloe had been 6 when she lost her grandmother, 5 when she lost her mother. Too much loss for such a small soul. Derek had promised himself he'd protect her from any more pain. But here was pain happening in real time, and his daughter was asking him to do something about it. The lead man leaned closer to the younger woman, his hand still locked around her wrist. Derek could read lips well enough from his SEAL days. "Sign the papers, Miss Hamilton, or things get much worse for you and your mother." Mother. So they were family. The thought hit Derek harder than it should have. He imagined Chloe in 20 years, elegant and successful, with him as the aging parent she took to dinner. Would someone threaten her like this? Would anyone step in if they did? The younger woman, Hamilton, they'd called her, shook her head. Defiant, even terrified. Derek respected that. He'd seen soldiers break under less pressure. "Stay here, baby." Derek's voice came out steadier than he felt. He stood, his 6'2" frame unfolding from their table. 3 years of civilian life had softened him slightly, but the muscle memory remained. The way he moved made heads turn. He'd learned to walk quietly in combat zones, to carry threat in his posture when needed, He needed it now. Chloe's hand slipped from his. "Daddy, be careful." Her whisper followed him across the restaurant floor. Derek's boots, the only nice shoes he owned, worn leather that had seen better days, made no sound on the marble. The pianist's music seemed to swell, violins building to some crescendo that would never come. Derek stopped 3 feet from the circle of men. Up close, he could smell their cologne, expensive and cloying. They wore suits that cost more than his monthly rent. But money didn't make you dangerous. Derek had learned that in Kandahar, in Ramadi, in a dozen places where wealth meant nothing and violence was currency. "Gentlemen," his voice cut through their conversation like a blade through silk. "I think the ladies would like to finish their dinner in peace." 5 pairs of eyes turned to him. The leader, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, a face that probably smiled in boardrooms before destroying careers, assessed Derek with the kind of dismissive glance rich men gave to problems they could buy their way out of. "This is a private conversation." The man's tone dripped condescension. "I suggest you return to your table before you embarrass yourself." Derek didn't move, didn't blink. He'd stared down Taliban fighters and insurgents who would gut you for a perceived insult. This corporate thug in his $3,000 suit was nothing. The lady's wrist. Derek's gaze dropped to where the man's fingers dug into Hamilton's skin, leaving white pressure marks. "Let go. Or I'll make you let go." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Other diners were watching now, the pretense of ignoring the situation shattered. The waiter with the tray finally moved, scurrying toward the kitchen. Smart kid. The leader released Hamilton's wrist with exaggerated slowness, a smirk playing at his lips. "And who exactly are you? Her boyfriend? Her bodyguard?" He looked Derek up and down, taking in the worn jeans, the button-down shirt that was clean but dated, the calloused hands that spoke of work, not wealth. "You don't look like you belong here." Derek felt the old anger stirring, the kind that had gotten him in trouble during his last year in the service, the kind that had convinced his commanding officer that maybe Derek needed to retire before he did something they'd all regret. But he'd learned control since then, had to, for Chloe's sake. "I'm the guy telling you to walk away." His voice stayed level, but something in his eyes must have registered, because the man's smirk faltered. One of the other men, younger, maybe 30, with the kind of gym-built muscles that looked impressive but moved slow, stepped forward. "Big mistake, old man." He reached for Derek's shoulder, probably planning to turn him around, march him back to his table like a misbehaving child. Derek moved on instinct. His hand came up, caught the reaching wrist, twisted just enough to lock the joint, not enough to break. Yet. The young man gasped, suddenly off balance, his face going pale. "Don't." Derek's voice was quiet, but every man there heard it. "I've had a really nice evening with my daughter. I'd hate to ruin it by putting you in the hospital." He released the wrist, and the young man stumbled back, cradling his arm. The leader's expression shifted, calculation replacing condescension. "You're making a very serious mistake, friend. Do you know who Miss Hamilton is? Do you understand the business you're interrupting?" Derek glanced at the woman in question. She was staring at him with a mixture of shock and something else. Hope, maybe, or disbelief that anyone had actually intervened. Her mother was gripping her hand now, both women silent. "I don't care who she is." Derek's attention returned to the leader. "I care that 5 men are threatening 2 women in a public place. Whatever business you have, conduct it somewhere else. Somewhere with lawyers and contracts and witnesses. Not here." The pianist had stopped playing. The restaurant had gone utterly silent except for the soft clink of ice and abandoned drinks. Derek could feel Chloe's eyes on his back, could imagine her small face tight with worry. He wanted to turn around, reassure her everything was fine. But turning your back on hostile targets was how you got killed. Basic training, day 1. The leader studied Derek for a long moment, then smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "This isn't over, Miss Hamilton. You have until end of business Friday to reconsider. After that, the offer expires, and things get much more complicated for Hamilton Tech." He straightened his tie, gestured to his companions. "Let's go. This establishment has lost its appeal." The 5 men filed toward the exit, but not before the leader paused beside Derek. "You've involved yourself in something you don't understand. I hope you don't regret it." The threat wasn't subtle. Derek had heard clearer ones from insurgents, but the message was the same. "Watch your back." Then they were gone, the front door swinging closed behind them with a soft chime. The restaurant exhaled collectively. Conversations resumed, quieter than before, but building. The pianist started playing again, something soft and soothing. Derek turned back to the 2 women. Hamilton was rubbing her wrist, red marks already darkening to bruises. Her mother looked shaken but composed, the kind of woman who'd been through worse and survived. "Thank you." Hamilton's voice was steadier than Derek expected. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in." She stood, extending her uninjured hand. "Brooke Hamilton. This is my mother, Patricia." Derek shook her hand, then Patricia's. Both grips were firm despite everything. "Derek Chase, and that's my daughter Chloe over there, probably worried I've lost my mind." He glanced back at his table where Chloe sat wide-eyed, her small hands clasped together like she'd been praying. She waved tentatively when she saw him looking. Derek's heart squeezed. What kind of father involved himself in violence with his 8-year-old watching? Patricia followed his gaze, and her expression softened completely. "She's beautiful. How old?" The grandmother instinct, even shaken and threatened, couldn't be suppressed. 8. Today, actually. Her birthday dinner. Derek felt suddenly foolish, like he'd made a scene at his daughter's celebration. But Brooke was shaking her head. "I'm so sorry. You should be with her, not dealing with this." She fumbled in her purse. Pulled out a business card. "Please, let me make this up to you somehow. Dinner, properly this time. Or whatever Chloe would like." Derek took the card. Brooke Hamilton, Chief Executive Officer, Hamilton Technologies. The logo was sleek, professional. This wasn't some small-time entrepreneur. What did they want? The question came out before Derek could stop it. Operational awareness, his old instructor would have called it. Never leave a situation without understanding the full scope. Brooke and Patricia exchanged a glance, some silent communication passing between them. "It's complicated," Brooke finally said. "Business dealings that went sour. They wanted me to sign over certain proprietary technologies as part of a merger. I refused because the contract was designed to give them complete control while leaving me with all the liability. They didn't take rejection well." Derek nodded slowly. Corporate warfare. Different battlefield, same tactics. Intimidation, threats, escalation until the target broke. Will they come back? He needed to know if he'd just painted a target on these women, or if the confrontation had actually resolved something. Brooke's expression told him everything. "Probably. They've invested too much in this deal to walk away. My refusal makes them look weak to their investors." She met his eyes directly. "You should know. These aren't just hired muscle. The man you confronted was Vincent Crane. He's the CEO of Blackstone Corporation, one of the most powerful tech companies in the country. You just made a very dangerous enemy." Derek absorbed this information without visible reaction. He'd made dangerous enemies before. They usually bled the same as everyone else. Then you need better security than restaurant staff and police who show up too late. Derek pulled his own card from his wallet, a simple white rectangle with his name and phone number. He did odd jobs, construction, security consulting for small businesses, whatever paid the bills while letting him be home for Chloe after school. If you need someone who knows what they're doing, call. Brooke took the card, studied it, then looked up at him with something like curiosity. "You're not just some good Samaritan, are you?" Derek allowed himself a small smile. "Retired Navy SEAL, 12 years of service. I know a tactical situation when I see one." He didn't mention the PTSD, the nightmares, the reason he'd taken early retirement. Some information wasn't relevant. Patricia spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "Would you and Chloe join us? We haven't ordered yet. And I think we could all use the company after that unpleasantness." She glanced at Brooke, who nodded immediately. "Please, it's the least we can do." Derek hesitated. His instinct was to decline, to take Chloe home where things were safe and predictable. But his daughter was already sliding out of her chair, approaching the group with her shy smile. "Daddy, can we? I want to make sure the grandma is okay." She directed this at Patricia, and the older woman's face lit up like sunrise. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm perfectly fine, especially now. Would you like to sit with us?" Chloe looked up at Derek, seeking permission. He saw the hope in her eyes, the same expression she got when she asked to stay up late or have ice cream for breakfast. How could he say no? "All right. Birthday dinner, version 2. He followed his daughter to their table, scooped up their menus and the small wrapped present he'd brought, a book she'd been wanting, and joined the women. The staff quickly rearranged things, pushing tables together, bringing fresh place settings. The manager appeared, apologizing profusely for the earlier incident, offering complimentary wine for the adults and whatever Chloe wanted for dessert. The kid's eyes widened. "Anything?" The manager nodded solemnly. "Anything at all, young lady. We're honored to have you celebrating here." Dinner unfolded in a way Derek hadn't anticipated. Chloe, normally shy around strangers, opened up to Patricia immediately. They discussed books and school and whether unicorns would make better pets than dragons. Patricia listened with the kind of attention that made you feel like the most important person in the world. Derek remembered his mother-in-law doing the same with Chloe before the cancer took her. That had been a dark time, watching his daughter lose another female figure she'd loved. Now, seeing her laugh at something Patricia said, Derek felt a strange mixture of gratitude and grief. Brooke watched the interaction too, her expression soft in a way that didn't match the corporate warrior who'd defied Crane. "You're a good father." Brooke's comment caught Derek off guard. "You can tell?" He'd always worried he was fumbling through single parenthood, that Chloe deserved better than his trial and error approach. Brooke nodded toward his daughter. "She feels safe enough to be herself around strangers. That doesn't happen unless a child trusts the parent completely." She paused, swirling wine in her glass. "My father died when I was 12. Car accident. Mom raised me alone while building her career in finance. I know what it looks like when a single parent does it right." There was respect in her tone, recognition of a shared struggle. Derek found himself telling them things he rarely discussed. About Sarah's death, the drunk driver who'd run a red light and destroyed his world in an instant. About his decision to retire from the SEALs because Chloe needed a father who was present. Not deployed to some desert or jungle 9 months a year. About the adjustment to civilian life, the jobs that didn't quite fit, the nights when the silence was too loud and the memories too vivid. Brooke listened without the usual platitudes. Patricia reached across and squeezed his hand once, a gesture that said more than words. These weren't just wealthy women playing at empathy. They understood loss. "What about you?" Derek asked Brooke. "How did you end up running a tech company?" She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "The usual way. Worked myself nearly to death for a decade, made the right connections, developed a piece of technology that nobody else had. Hamilton Tech specializes in cybersecurity solutions for critical infrastructure, power grids, water systems, hospitals. We protect the things that keep society functioning." Pride colored her words, but also exhaustion. And now Blackstone wants to take it all. Derek understood that feeling too. Building something precious only to have someone try to rip it away. The evening stretched longer than Derek planned. Dessert arrived, a massive slice of chocolate cake for Chloe that made her gasp, smaller portions for the adults. They sang happy birthday, and Chloe blew out a single candle with such force that Patricia laughed until she cried. Derek watched his daughter glow with happiness and felt his decision to intervene vindicated. Yes, he'd put himself in danger. Yes, he'd probably complicated his life in ways he couldn't yet predict. But Chloe had asked if they could help, and he'd shown her that the answer was yes. That when someone needed help, you stepped up. That was worth any consequence. As they prepared to leave, Brooke insisted on covering the entire bill despite Derek's protests. Please, you gave us something tonight that can't be measured in money. Let me do this. She pressed her business card into his hand again. And I meant what I said. If you're open to consulting work, Hamilton Tech could use someone with your expertise. Our current security firm is corporate, all protocols and no instinct. You have instinct. Derek pocketed the card without commitment. Jobs that paid well usually came with complications. But he'd think about it. Chloe needed new school clothes, and the truck needed brakes, and the list of things that required money never got shorter. Patricia hugged Chloe goodbye, a proper grandmother embrace that made the little girl squeeze back with all her strength. You come visit me anytime, sweetheart. I'll teach you to bake cookies. Chloe looked at Derek with such hope that he knew he'd be making that happen. We'd like that. Thank you. Derek shook hands with both women, professional but warm. As he and Chloe walked to his truck in the parking lot, his daughter slipped her hand into his. That was the best birthday ever, Daddy. Her voice was sleepy, content. You were like a superhero tonight. Derek buckled her into the back seat, kissed her forehead. Just a dad looking out for people who needed help. Driving home through the quiet streets, Derek couldn't shake the feeling that tonight had shifted something. He'd opened a door he couldn't close, stepped into someone else's war. Crane's threat echoed in his mind. You've involved yourself in something you don't understand. Maybe that was true. But Derek had spent 12 years involving himself in situations he didn't fully understand, fighting for people he'd never met, protecting interests that were sometimes murky at best. This time, he'd looked into the eyes of the people he was protecting. He'd seen their humanity, their fear, their gratitude. That made it different. That made it matter in a way that military operations never quite had. The days that followed settled into routine with surprising ease. Derek expected nothing to come of the dinner. Maybe a polite thank you text from Brooke, and then silence. Instead, Patricia called 2 days later. Chloe mentioned she loves to read. I found some books I thought she might enjoy. Her voice was warm, grandmotherly in all the best ways. Could we meet at the park? I promise not to monopolize your afternoon. Derek agreed, mostly because Chloe had asked about Patricia 3 times already. They met on Saturday at Riverside Park, and within minutes, Chloe was showing Patricia her favorite playground equipment, while Derek sat on a bench and watched. Brooke appeared 20 minutes later, carrying coffee in paper cups and wearing jeans instead of her power suit. She looked younger like this, less CEO and more human. Mom told me you'd be here. Thought you might need caffeine. She handed him a cup, black, somehow knowing his preference without asking. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Patricia push Chloe on the swings. She's happier than I've seen her in months, Brooke said quietly. My mother. Since my father died, she's been lonely. The social circles we used to run in disappeared when I refused to play by the old boys' club rules. They punish rebellion by isolation. Derek sipped his coffee, considered his words. Chloe's happier too. She misses her grandmother, Having Patricia around might be good for both of them. He glanced at Brooke. If you're comfortable with that. The concern was practical. These were wealthy, powerful women with complicated lives. Chloe was a working-class kid with a father who lived paycheck to paycheck. Different worlds that didn't usually intersect beyond brief encounters. But Brooke smiled, genuine and unguarded. I'd love that. And selfishly, it means I get to see you both too. You're good people, Derek. That's rarer than you'd think in my world. Over the next 2 weeks, the four of them fell into an easy rhythm. Dinner once a week at Patricia's house, a sprawling place in the suburbs with a garden that Chloe loved exploring. Park visits on Saturdays when Brooke could escape the office. A movie night where they watched animated films and ate popcorn until everyone felt slightly sick. Derek found himself relaxing in ways he hadn't since Sarah died. The constant vigilance, the sense that he had to handle everything alone, eased slightly. Patricia was the grandmother Chloe desperately needed, and Brooke was becoming something Derek wasn't quite ready to name, a friend who understood pressure and responsibility and the weight of keeping people safe. But peace was temporary. Derek had learned that in combat zones, where weeks of boredom exploded into seconds of chaos, he should have been watching closer, should have maintained operational awareness even in civilian life. The signs were there if he'd been looking. Brooke grew quieter, more distracted. She'd check her phone obsessively, her expression darkening with each notification. Patricia mentioned that Brooke wasn't sleeping well, was working 16-hour days. Derek asked once if everything was okay, and Brooke had smiled that corporate smile that meant nothing. Just the usual business fires. Nothing I can't handle. But her eyes told a different story. The news broke on a Thursday morning. Derek was making Chloe breakfast when his phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. Turn on the news. Channel 7. He flipped on the small TV in the kitchen, found the local morning show. The anchor's voice was professionally sympathetic as graphics appeared behind her. Hamilton Technologies, the cybersecurity firm that's been making waves in the industry, is now at the center of serious allegations. Documents obtained by this station suggest CEO Brooke Hamilton may have misappropriated company funds and engaged in fraudulent accounting practices. The Securities and Exchange Commission has reportedly opened an investigation. Derek's coffee went cold in his hand. On screen, images of Brooke at various events appeared, professional photos now weaponized. His phone rang, Brooke's name on the screen. He answered immediately. "I'm watching." Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual composure. "It's all lies, Derek, every word. But the damage is done. Stock dropped 30% in the first hour of trading. The board is meeting this afternoon. Half of them want my resignation." She took a shaky breath. "Crane did this. I have proof. He fabricated documents, bribed someone in our accounting department to create false records. But proving it takes time, I don't have. The court of public opinion has already convicted me." Derek could hear the defeat in her words, the sound of someone watching everything they'd built collapse. "What do you need?" He was already thinking tactically, assessing options. This was information warfare, and while he'd never fought on this particular battlefield, the principles remained consistent. Identify the enemy's strategy, disrupt their supply lines, attack their credibility. Brooke went quiet for a moment. "I don't know. I've hired the best lawyers, the best crisis management team. They're talking about damage control, about settling with Crane to make this go away. But that means giving up everything. Signing over my technology, stepping down, letting him win." Her voice hardened. "I can't do that. I won't." Derek recognized that tone. He'd used it himself in briefings before dangerous ops. "Then we fight back. What proof do you have?" They talked for an hour, Derek pacing his small living room while Chloe watched cartoons. Brooke had been collecting evidence for weeks, ever since Crane's first approach. emails that hinted at the scheme, financial records that didn't match the fabricated ones now making headlines, a private investigator's report showing connections between Crane's people and Hamilton Tech's compromised accountant. But her lawyers said it wasn't enough, that she needed a smoking gun, something so clear that even Crane's media machine couldn't spin it. "I'm working on that," Brooke said. "There's a shareholders' meeting Friday afternoon. Crane will be there, probably expecting me to resign. Instead, I'm going to present everything." Derek's instinct screamed warning. "He won't let you. If you're right about him fabricating this evidence, he's committed serious crimes. People don't commit crimes like that unless they're willing to go further to protect themselves." Silence on the other end. "You think he'll try something?" Brooke's voice had gone smaller, and Derek hated hearing the fear creeping in. "I think desperate men do desperate things. And I think you've underestimated how much Crane wants your technology. Military applications, Brooke. Your cybersecurity could be worth billions to the right buyer. Maybe foreign governments, maybe terrorist organizations. Men have killed for much less." The words hung heavy between them. "Then what do I do?" It was almost a whisper. Derek made a decision that would change everything. "You let me help, properly this time. Not just dinner and park visits. You hire me as personal security through Friday's meeting. I assess threats, I watch for problems, and I keep you safe while you do what you need to do." Brooke tried to laugh. "Derek, I can't ask you to do that. You have Chloe to think about. This could get dangerous." He thought of his daughter asking if they could help her, thought of the faith in Chloe's eyes when she called him a superhero. "Chloe's the reason I'm offering. She needs to grow up in a world where good people don't get destroyed by bullies, where someone stands up. Let me stand up." The arrangement was made. Derek called in every favor he had, arranged for Chloe to stay with her teacher for a few days, a woman who loved Chloe like a niece and didn't ask too many questions. He met with Brooke and Patricia at their house, went through security protocols, changed their routines, varied their routes, had them park in different places. Basic stuff, but enough to make targeting harder. Patricia watched him work with curiosity. "You really think Crane would hurt us?" Derek didn't sugarcoat it. "I think he's already hurt you through lies and manipulation. Physical violence isn't a big leap from that." Patricia went pale, but nodded. She was tougher than she looked, this elegant woman who'd raised a daughter alone. Thursday evening, Derek was sitting in his truck outside Patricia's house when 3 sedans pulled up. Not delivery vehicles, not neighbors. Dark windows, professional drivers. They parked across the street and waited. Derek's hand moved to his phone, but before he could dial, one of the cars started forward. It jumped the curb, aimed directly at the front door. Derek was moving before conscious thought, sprinting across the lawn even as he shouted into his phone. 911, home invasion in progress. He reached the door the same moment the sedan crashed through the garden gate, stopping just short of the house. 4 men piled out. Not the restaurant thugs, professionals, military bearing. One held a gun low at his side. Derek's training kicked in completely. He evaluated angles, cover, threat levels. The man with the gun was former military, Derek could tell from his stance. The others were hired muscle but trained. They spread out, moving to flank the house. Derek had seconds to act before they breached the door, where Brooke and Patricia were inside, unaware. He stepped into view, hands visible but ready. Private property. Leave now. His voice carried the absolute authority of someone who'd given orders under fire. The man with the gun smiled. "We're here for Miss Hamilton. This can go easy or hard, friend. Your choice." Derek recognized the offer. Stand down. Live to fight another day. Tactically sound advice in most situations. But Chloe's voice echoed in his head. "Daddy, can we help her?" He'd made a choice in that restaurant, had reaffirmed it every day since. Some lines you didn't cross. Some people you didn't abandon. Hard, then. Derek moved like he hadn't in 3 years, like the Navy had trained into muscle and bone. He closed the distance before gunman could raise his weapon. Struck with palm heel to the throat, followed with knee to solar plexus. The gun clattered away. The other 3 rushed him, and Derek became a weapon himself. Block, strike, redirect. Use their momentum against them. He took hits, fist to jaw, elbow to ribs, but dished out worse. One man went down clutching his knee. The joint bent wrong. Another doubled over from a strike to the kidney. The third got Derek in a hold from behind, arms crushing his ribs. Derek drove his head back, felt cartilage crunch, spun free as the man howled. Then gunman was up again, reaching for his weapon. Derek dove, rolled, came up with the gun in his hands. He pointed it at the 4 men, his breath coming hard but his aim steady. On the ground. Now. They complied, recognizing someone who knew which end of a weapon to use. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. Derek kept the gun trained on the men, while his free hand pulled out his phone. "Brooke, stay inside. Lock the doors." The police arrived 3 minutes later, found Derek holding 4 men at gunpoint while blood dripped from his split lip. The officers recognized a veteran when they saw one, took his statement seriously. The 4 intruders claimed they'd been hired for property recovery by a shell company that turned out to be owned by Blackstone Corporation. The connection to Crane wasn't direct, but it was there if you looked. Brooke emerged from the house, shaking but unharmed, Patricia right behind her. They'd heard the commotion, had called 911 themselves. "You're bleeding," Brooke said, touching Derek's face gently. "Come inside. Let me clean that up." Derek let himself be led into the house. Let Patricia bring ice for his ribs. Let Brooke dab at the cut on his lip with surprising gentleness. "He's escalating." Derek winced as antiseptic hit the wound. "This wasn't about scaring you anymore. They had a gun. They were going to take you, probably force you to sign documents under duress, then dispose of you." He said it flatly, letting them understand the reality. Patricia made a small sound. Brooke's hand stilled. "Dispose of us?" Her voice was steady, but her eyes held terror. Derek met her gaze. "Men like Crane don't leave witnesses to crimes like fraud and kidnapping. You would have signed whatever he wanted, and then you would have disappeared. Both of you. Accident, maybe. Or just gone. Another unsolved missing persons case." The weight of that settled over them like a shroud. Finally, Brooke spoke. "Then we can't wait for the shareholders' meeting. We go to the police now. Turn over everything." Derek shook his head. "Police need time to build a case. Crane has expensive lawyers who'll tie them up for months while he destroys evidence. You need to go public, like you planned. But we need to make sure you live long enough to do it." He stood, testing his ribs, bruised but not broken. "Tomorrow morning, we hold a press conference. Your lawyer can arrange it. You present all your evidence to reporters, not just shareholders. Make it public enough that Crane can't suppress it. Then you're protected by exposure." Brooke looked at her mother, some silent communication passing between them. Patricia nodded. "Do it, honey. We've come too far to back down now." Brooke turned back to Derek, and he saw the steel underneath her. Fear. The same steel that had built a tech company from nothing, that had stood up to Crane in the first place. "Okay, we fight." She pulled out her phone, started making calls to her PR team, her lawyers. Within an hour, a press conference was scheduled for 9 the next morning at the downtown business center. Brooke would present her evidence publicly, call out Crane by name, and force the authorities to act. It was bold. It was dangerous. It might get them all killed. But it was the right move. Derek spent the night at Patricia's house, catching a few hours of sleep on the couch with one eye metaphorically open. Every sound brought him alert. Cars passing, wind rattling windows, the house settling. At dawn, He checked the perimeter, confirmed police patrols were driving by every hour per his request. Brooke came downstairs at 6, already dressed in her power suit, looking exhausted, but determined. "Thank you." She stood beside him at the window, both of them watching the sun paint the sky pink and gold. "For everything. For seeing us when everyone else looked away. For standing up when it put you in danger. For being exactly what we needed." Derek thought about Chloe, hoped his daughter would understand why he'd done this, hoped she'd be proud of her father for fighting when it mattered. "You would have done the same for me. I see that in you." Brooke leaned against his shoulder, just for a moment, seeking comfort, or offering it, maybe both. "I hope I'm that brave. I'm terrified, Derek. What if I mess this up? What if Crane still wins?" Derek turned to face her, put his hands on her shoulders. "Then you mess it up fighting. You go down swinging. But you don't give up, and you don't let him take what's yours. That's how you win, even in defeat. You maintain your integrity." The press conference room filled with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. Derek stood at the back, scanning faces, watching exits. He'd positioned himself where he could see threats coming, where he could react if needed. Brooke took the podium, Patricia beside her for support. The lights were bright, harsh. Brooke blinked once, then began. "My name is Brooke Hamilton, CEO of Hamilton Technologies. I'm here to expose a coordinated campaign of fraud and intimidation orchestrated by Vincent Crane and Blackstone Corporation." Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. For the next 40 minutes, Brooke laid it all out. The false documents, the bribed employee, the threatening messages. The attempted kidnapping last night, which police were investigating. She showed emails on the screen behind her, financial records, investigator reports. Her voice never wavered. This was the woman who'd built a company from nothing, and she wasn't going to let it be stolen. When she finished, the room erupted with questions. But Derek's attention was on the back door, which had just opened. Vincent Crane stood there, flanked by lawyers. He looked furious, his composed corporate mask slipping to reveal something uglier underneath. "Miss Hamilton is a desperate woman, making desperate allegations," Crane announced loudly, cutting through the reporter noise. "We will pursue defamation charges for these outrageous lies." Brooke met his gaze across the crowded room. "Then sue me, Mr. Crane. Prove me wrong in court." "I welcome it." The tension ratcheted impossibly higher. Derek moved slightly, positioning himself between Crane and Brooke without being obvious. This was the moment when desperate men made fatal mistakes. But Crane just smiled coldly. "You've made a serious enemy, Miss Hamilton. I hope you can live with the consequences." Then he turned and left, his lawyers trailing behind like pilot fish. The threat hung in the air, unmistakable. Derek knew they hadn't seen the last of Vincent Crane. Men like that didn't accept defeat gracefully. But for now, Brooke had won the day. The press conference ended, reporters scattering to file stories. By noon, every news outlet was running Brooke's allegations. Social media exploded with commentary. Hamilton Tech's stock began to recover as investors realized they'd been manipulated. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced a formal investigation into Blackstone. The local police connected last night's intruders to Crane's company through financial records. It wasn't over. These things never were, not cleanly. But the tide had turned. Crane was now defending instead of attacking. Brooke was vindicated instead of vilified. That afternoon, Derek picked up Chloe from her teacher's house. His daughter hugged him so hard his bruised ribs protested. "Did you catch the bad guys, Daddy?" Chloe's eyes were wide, full of trust that Derek would always make things right. "We caught them, baby. Miss Brooke was very brave, and the truth came out." Chloe considered this seriously. "Like in the stories, where the hero wins." Derek kissed the top of her head. Just like that. They went to Patricia's house for dinner. A celebration of sorts, though everyone was too exhausted for much fanfare. Chloe and Patricia baked cookies, while Derek and Brooke sat in the living room, decompressing. "What happens now?" Derek asked. Brooke shrugged, looking more relaxed than he'd seen her in weeks. "Lawyers, investigations, rebuilding my company's reputation, the usual aftermath." She smiled at him. "And figuring out how to thank the man who saved my life. Twice now." Derek was about to deflect, but Brooke held up a hand. "I mean it. I want to hire you properly, head of security for Hamilton Tech, real salary, benefits, the works. You'd be protecting critical infrastructure, training teams, building protocols, important work." Derek thought about it, really considered instead of dismissing outright. "I'd need to be home for Chloe after school. No long deployments." Brooke nodded. "Flexible schedule. Bring her to the office if needed. We have excellent day programs for employees' kids during holidays and summers. Patricia already loves her." As if summoned, Chloe appeared in the doorway, covered in flour, beaming. "Daddy, look! I made cookies shaped like unicorns." Patricia stood behind her, equally flour-dusted, laughing. "She's a natural baker." Derek looked at his daughter's joy, at Patricia's grandmotherly pride, at Brooke's honest offer. He thought about the restaurant weeks ago, about Chloe asking if they could help. They'd helped, and helping had led here, to new friends, to possibilities, to a future that looked brighter than any he'd imagined. "Okay." Derek extended his hand to Brooke. "I accept. But Chloe comes first, always." Brooke shook his hand firmly. "I wouldn't have it any other way. Family first. That's how we do things." The word family settled warm in Derek's chest. He'd been alone with Chloe for 3 years, carrying the weight of single parenthood like a rucksack full of rocks. Now that weight felt lighter, distributed across more shoulders. Patricia and Brooke weren't replacing Sarah or Patricia's late husband, but they were creating something new, something built on mutual respect and care, and the bond formed through facing danger together. That was its own kind of family, the kind you chose rather than inherited. Over the following weeks, life found a new normal. Derek started at Hamilton Tech, impressed by the technology and the people who built it. Brooke was a demanding but fair boss, and her team respected her even more after she'd stood up to Crane publicly. The investigation into Blackstone uncovered layers of corporate fraud that went far beyond the Hamilton Tech situation. Crane resigned under pressure, facing potential criminal charges. His company's stock collapsed. Justice moved slowly, but it moved. Derek watched Brooke rebuild her company's reputation with the same determination she'd shown during the crisis. That was the kind of strength that lasted. Chloe thrived. She spent afternoons at Hamilton Tech's educational center, learning basic coding and robotics alongside employees' kids. Patricia picked her up 3 days a week, and they'd bake or garden or read together. Derek's daughter had the grandmother she desperately needed, and Patricia had the granddaughter she'd lost when Brooke grew too busy for family time. That relationship healed something in both of them. Derek watched it happen with gratitude that sometimes made his throat tight. Sarah would have loved this, would have wanted this for their daughter. He hoped somehow she knew Chloe was okay, was thriving, was loved. 6 months after the press conference, Hamilton Tech held a celebration party. New contracts signed, company value recovered, team morale high. Derek stood on the balcony of the rented venue, watching the city lights spread below. Brooke joined him, champagne glass in hand. "Penny for your thoughts?" She'd grown more relaxed over the months, less guarded. They'd fallen into an easy friendship, occasionally complicated by moments of awareness that maybe it could be more. But neither pushed. Both knew healing took time. "Thinking about choices," Derek said. "How one moment can change everything." "Chloe asking if we could help you. Me deciding to stand up instead of walk away. All the things that led here. Brooke nodded slowly. I think about that too. What would have happened if you'd stayed at your table? If nobody had helped? She shuddered slightly. I probably wouldn't be here. Mom definitely wouldn't. Derek wanted to say something comforting, but she was right. Crane had been willing to kill. Without intervention, things would have ended badly. But you did help, Brooke continued. You taught Chloe an incredible lesson about courage and standing up for others. You showed her what a real hero looks like. Not in movies or books, but in real life. Ordinary people making extraordinary choices. Derek felt heat rise in his cheeks, uncomfortable with praise. I just did what felt right. That's what makes it heroic. Brooke turned to face him fully. Derek, I know we're taking things slow. I know you're still dealing with Sarah's loss, and I'm rebuilding my life. But I want you to know I'm grateful you're in it. You and Chloe both. She reached for his hand, squeezed gently. Whatever this becomes, friendship or something more, I'm glad we're figuring it out together. Derek squeezed back, let himself imagine possibilities. Maybe there was room in his life for more than just surviving. Maybe he could build something new without betraying what he'd lost. Sarah had made him promise, in those final hospital moments, before she died from her injuries, to live fully. To show Chloe that love was worth the risk of loss. Inside the party, Chloe was teaching Patricia a dance move. Both of them laughing. His daughter wore a new dress, blue like her birthday dress but fancier, a gift from Brooke. She looked happy in a way that went bone deep, the kind of happiness that came from feeling secure and loved. Derek had given her that foundation after Sarah died, but Brooke and Patricia had added to it, had shown Chloe that family could grow and change and become something you built together. We're lucky, Derek said to Brooke. All of us. That night could have gone so many ways, but we found each other. Brooke smiled, leaned against his shoulder the way she had that morning before the press conference. Luck had nothing to do with it. You made a choice. We all did. To be brave, to fight, to trust each other. That's not luck. That's just good people doing their best. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching through the windows as Chloe spun Patricia in circles. The music drifted out, something upbeat and joyful. Derek thought about the man he'd been in the restaurant 6 months ago, hyper-vigilant and closed off, convinced his only job was protecting his daughter from a dangerous world. He'd learned something important since then. Yes, the world was dangerous, but it was also full of people worth protecting, worth connecting with, worth building something beautiful alongside. You just had to be willing to see them, to help when asked, to stand up when others looked away. Daddy, Chloe's voice called from inside. Come dance with us. She was waving enthusiastically, Patricia beside her doing the same. Brooke laughed, tugged Derek toward the door. Come on, hero. Your daughter is calling. Derek let himself be pulled back into the light and music and laughter. He swept Chloe up in a dance, her giggles filling the room. Patricia and Brooke joined them, and for a moment, they were just 4 people moving together, connected by something stronger than blood. Connected by choice, by courage, by the simple act of helping when someone asked, "Can we help her?" The answer would always be yes. That's what heroes did. They helped. They stood up. They showed up. They proved that even in a world full of Vincent Cranes, there were still Derek Chases. Still Brooks and Patricias and Chloes who believed that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. That family was something you built through action and care and showing up day after day. That redemption wasn't a single moment, but a series of choices to be better, to do better, to protect what was worth protecting. Derek had found his redemption not on a battlefield, but in a restaurant, in a little girl's question, in the decision to be the kind of father she could be proud of. He looked at Chloe's shining face, at Patricia's grandmother joy, at Brooke's grateful smile. He felt the ache of old wounds, Sarah's loss, his PTSD, the scars from combat, visible and invisible. But he also felt something new growing. Hope, connection, the possibility that his best days weren't behind him but ahead, being built right now in this moment. He'd been a Navy SEAL, had fought in distant wars for abstract causes. But this, protecting these people, building this family, teaching his daughter through action what courage meant, this was the mission that mattered most. This was what he'd been training for all along. Not the violence, but the choice to use strength for protection. Not the warrior, but the guardian. The music played on. They danced. And somewhere in the city, Vincent Crane was facing the consequences of his choices, while Derek Chase celebrated the rewards of his. The balance felt right. Justice wasn't always clean or complete, but sometimes it was enough. Sometimes the good guys won. Sometimes courage paid off. Sometimes helping a stranger changed your life in ways you never imagined. Derek held his daughter close, caught Brooke's eye across the dance floor, saw Patricia watching them all with such profound contentment. This was what victory looked like, not grand or glorious, but simple and human and real. Outside, the city lights glittered against the darkness. Inside, they danced. And for now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The question had been asked and answered. Can we help her? Yes. Yes, we can. And in helping others, we help ourselves. We find family. We find purpose. We find redemption. Derek Chase, former Navy SEAL, current father and guardian and friend, had finally found his way home. Not to a place, but to a people. To connections forged through fire and tested by threat. To a future built on the simple foundation of showing up when it mattered most. The story could have ended 100 different ways, but it ended with dancing, with laughter, with the warmth of people who'd chosen each other. That was the best ending Derek could imagine, the only one worth fighting for. And as Chloe wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered, "I love you, Daddy. You're my hero," Derek knew every choice had been worth it, every risk, every fight, every moment of fear, because this, right here, right now, was everything that mattered. His daughter safe, his friends close, his purpose clear, his redemption earned not through grand gestures, but through daily choices to be present, to be brave, to be the man Chloe believed him to be. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.